Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scot McKay.
Greetings, gentlemen, all across the fruited plain and worldwide. Welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Scot McKay. That's at Scot McKay everywhere except on Instagram, where I'm Real Scot McKay, at Real Scot McKay, that is. The Mountaintop Podcast official website, except no substitutes, gentlemen, is mountaintoppodcast.com, and the Facebook group for the 100 millionth time. What has to be probably only about the 350th time, because that's how many episodes roughly we have. But anyway, the Mountaintop Summit is the Facebook group. We hope you'll join it soon. Hey, guess what? I got a new guest for you today. She and I made friends immediately. I've already spoken on a summit that she held mostly for ladies, and it occurred to me to invite her to talk to you because, first of all, she is very smart, and second of all, she's a sex advice instructor, and female sex advice instructors are among your favorite guests. So whenever I meet a new one and they are crazy enough to agree to walk into this buzzsaw, which is this audience. I'm kidding, Sydney. Hang in there. Okay. Then it is always a pleasure. And her name is, as you already half know, Sydney Richdale. I did a coaching call in Australia this morning. So this is actually the second time today I've talked to Sydney. See what I did there? But anyway, Sydney Richdale is not from Australia. She's actually from Canada. She's from Victoria, BC, which is just a beautiful part of the world. So no wonder she's happy all the time. Anyway, Sydney Richdale, welcome. It's great to have you on board.
Hi, Scott. Thank you for having me and introducing me to your community. I'm excited. Let's have some fun.
All right. Sounds like you're smiling already. So I've got your sense of humor fired up, right?
You sure have.
Okay. All right. I want you to tell these guys a little bit about what you do for a living and the types of people who come to you and listen to your kind of content, for lack of a better word.
That's a great place to start.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah, of course. Any day we're talking about sex, I'm like, oh yeah, let's get it going. Hello, gentlemen. I'm Sydney. Nice to meet you all. I am a sex and relationship coach, and I help couples up-level their sex life and just really enjoy passion, pleasure, connection with each other. It's one of my favorite things to talk to people about because it's so hush-hush, like we grow up like being a little bit confused, I think, because we live in a highly sexualized culture and yet we're not really encouraged to talk about it or ask questions. So I exist in the world to blow that shit up because I'm like, no. I want to normalize this topic. So again, Scott, thank you for having me on today, just so we can have these open conversations and also have it fun, make it fun, like that's my big goal in life too, is sometimes we approach sex with so much like fear or like expectations. And I'm like, no, let's just have fun, be open and enjoy ourselves,
Ye old sexpectations. That's a crusher,
yes.
Isn't it? You talked about several things. First thing, you earned major brownie points with me by calling me Scot. I love when women do that. I've always found that endearing when they pronounce my name that way. But enough about me. You're absolutely right. This is an extremely over-sexed culture. I mean, we're a capitalistic culture, right? And sex sells. So it's sex, porn. And you're right. It's all hush-hush. It's all in private. Nobody wants to admit they're horny. Nobody wants to admit they even think about sex. Sydney, one of the reasons why I love to have ladies like you on is because there are so many guys out there who have been, I don't know if they brainwashed themselves or someone else did it on someone else's behalf or the culture's behalf, but they don't think women even like sex. And I mean, spoiler alert, these guys have heard this before, but just to make sure you know what I've told these guys in the past and what we've talked about around here, a lot of that has to do with how women have been slut shamed and not really allowed to express their sexuality in an equitable way as to how men are typically allowed to and encouraged to. And also women have to be very protective of themselves even their physical security, let alone their sexual security. I mean, after all, STDs, pregnancies are, well, let's just put it this way. It's one thing if you're a guy and you get a woman pregnant, but when the woman gets pregnant, she's the one carrying the baby. I mean, it's like the old joke about the pig and the chicken who are planning on giving the farmer ham and eggs breakfast. Pig's like, well, you're just making a contribution, but on my part, it's a whole commitment. So, I mean, there are lots of different ideas and ideals that kind of conspire together to, I don't know, give an outward impression at least that women just really aren't all that interested in sex. What say you?
That's a great question. I think, it really comes down to your own experiences and upbringing and whether you've had some traumatic event. I think, some people just don't like sex, but I don't think it's about the sex. I think it's about, their boundaries have been violated, or they haven't felt safe, or they've been victimized, they've been traumatized. It's usually not about the sex. And some people do experience pain or discomfort during sex, but there's ways to go about remedying that so you can get to a place where you are feeling good in your body and, you have that emotional connection, emotional safety. And it's more than just the physical being with each other. But I just really don't think it's about the sex that people say, I don't like sex. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think you're onto something there. I mean, there are different ways we get traumatized. Absolutely. Some people have had bad sexual experiences. Some people, like you said, I mean, this is something I think a lot of guys don't realize is that sex is indeed very painful for probably more women than is the case for men. I mean, I think some guys have painful sex problems, but I think women are more likely to. There's also, I might not like sex right now because I got the smoke and yeast infection going on or something like that. But I will go off the board a little bit from what you so neatly presented and repeat something I've repeated on this show before just to get your take on it. I think whenever a guy looks at the entire female gender, right, on a wholesale basis and says, women don't like sex, I think it goes above and beyond the simple recognition that, some people are broken. Some people have some healing to do. Some people have bad sexual experiences. It's not so fun for them. I mean, goodness, some people are asexual. That's 1% of the community, by estimation. And we've talked about that on this show. But when a guy looks at all women and says they all don't like sex, I think he needs to look in the mirror. I don't think it's that women don't like sex. I think it's women, if you want to talk about at the wholesale level, just don't like having sex with him. Get my drift? There's some work to do there.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like if that's the common theme you are receiving from women that you're dating or in relationship with, I think looking in the mirror is a great place to start.
By the way, I may or may not cut this out. Actually, I think it'll probably be a good thing that guys hear me tell you this. You don't have to babysit this crowd, Sydney. You don't have to play nice. You don't have to be Ms. Nice Girl with these guys. They can handle the truth. That's what they came here for. That's this audience. I don't have a lot of wimpy boys out there. At least if they are, they're recovering. They don't want to be that way anymore. So you can tell them how this goes. You know what I mean? You don't have to hold back. I firmly know for a fact there are lots of women who are giving men the impression that women don't like sex because the guys are just in denial about how unattractive they're acting towards the women. And perhaps that leads me, a nice segue here to the next question, which is, where do guys really mess up in terms of trying to create sexual attraction with women? Because I think that seems to be the crux of this particular matter and probably a pretty good jumping off point, don't you think? So how about it?
Well, I just want to dive into something you said there. You said when they're acting unattractively, or you said something there. And I was like, yes, because it's not how you look, gentlemen. It's your actions and how you're coming across, how you're showing up. With a lot of women, we were just talking about the safety piece. Like, we have had shit experiences with some men. We are guarded. Like we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to go through that again. So when you're approaching a woman, you kind of got to go in knowing that and just being really gentle, like your approach. Like, you may find this woman like so beautiful. You want to go talk to her. That's not the issue, but it's you don't want to come in too hot and heavy. Like, you want to be a gentleman. She wants to feel safe and like, through conversation and things like that.
Well, let's go ahead and define gentle as per the context you use it in, as opposed to say soft or wimpy. Let's clarify that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good sort of depiction there. Yeah.
Play safe.
Well, I'm just thinking for myself, because I'm a pretty like sensitive person to energy and just the way people are. Like, it's like coming into my own personal space. I'm like, I've had people, like want to hug me without asking my permission. And I'm like, no, like, back the fuck off. I don't even know you. So I don't know. Let's say you see a woman at a bar. That's the classic example. We'll use it. So you can definitely approach her, but noticing her body language, gentlemen, like, is she like closing up? Is she moving back? Like, just noticing herself. And if you notice that, take a little bit of a step back yourself. Notice how you're showing up with your body in that space. Like, is it too overbearing? Just even stepping it back a little bit physically can help you out with that, I think.
It's garbage in, garbage out with women. How you lead is how she's going to react.
Mm-hmm.
If you're being really overly aggressive, or aggressive at all. Aggressive is just a crappy term to use in any context that relates to flirting, seduction, or attraction. Aggressive is the wrong move, whatever it is. So you have this guy, we left him at the bar trying to talk to this woman, and he's taking a gentle, I would say warm, light approach as opposed to this ham-fisted, heavy-handed approach. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, he can talk to her. He can have a normal conversation with her. He doesn't have to have this amazing Disney prince perfected approach, or else she's going to be dying to reject him, right? It could just be something that pretty much establishes him as a normal guy. And I would add to that, it doesn't have to be sexual at first. Matter of fact, it probably shouldn't. And Sydney, I've talked to these guys about how flirting is more like a dial in a woman's mind than a binary on-off switch. So simply being warm and light helps open the doorway to conversation, and then maybe you can ramp up the flirting if you know how to wait for it, read the room, like you just mentioned, and like we talk about all the time. So go on. Tell us a little bit more about, I guess this topic is really starting to become opening up a woman to feel more sexually attracted. And I think we'll probably get into how to have actually better sex by helping her open up and feel comfortable. But I love the topic. So let's keep on. Let's keep on that trajectory. What should a guy do to help create sexual attraction that might be counterintuitive compared to what guys have been told?
Counterintuitive. Okay. Well, for the men who are listening here, who may be a bit nervous or like concerned, I would just really work on cultivating not only sexual relationships with women, but friendships too, because then you're in connection with women more. So you're not as worried about, I might say the wrong thing and like scare her off or come across too, like you said, aggressive or dumb, because you like a lot of the time, I think it's nerves and that's okay. But like really cultivating friendships. So you're among women more regularly. So you're comfortable in their presence. And so you're less likely to be like, like, spew out maybe some dumb things.
What I love about you already? Deep down, you're a big dork like me. Aren't you? Admit it. You're a dorky chick.
So. I've got my dorky, nerdy side for sure.
Oh, my wife does too. I think most men adore dorky, nerdy chicks, as long as you're hot. And it's interesting because, see, you, by being that way, being a little bit more open and having kind of this happy-go-lucky devil-may-care attitude, that makes you personally easier to approach than a lot of these uptight women. But see, just because a woman has an uptight personality, maybe a little social reticence, is a little bit more circumspect than other women even, doesn't mean that she's frigid in the bedroom, does it? Once you get to know her, once you draw her out a little bit, there's a big prize there. A lot of times.
Oh, for sure. And gentlemen, like, it's not just about you and what you're doing or what you're not doing. Some women they're just like that. And that's not something you can do a whole lot about. Like, they're just kind of like the man bashers, and they'll, they're just closed off. And sometimes you got to pick up on that and just be like, okay, I'm moving on. Like there'll be someone else out there that's not so invested in keeping you at an arm's length. Probably not who you want to, like pursue anyway, because that's probably going to feed into the nerves and the insecurity. Like you want a woman who may be a little reserved, but is also like, you can tell she's open, she's smiling, like she's kind of laughing with you. There's that openness there, and she's not going to open herself up immediately, but at least there's some openness to talking to you, developing something further, maybe based on what she wants, what she's looking for. But you can tell. And like, I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. So a lot of it is just getting a sense of the energy in the room. Like you said, reading the room, reading body language. You can tell when people are interested and people who are not.
A lot of these guys are probably out there asking, okay, this Sydney chick, is she really a guy in a blonde wig? Because she seems to understand this really, really well. And I, of course, know you're most certainly not. You're all woman all the time. But everything you're saying really is very sensitive to the reality that men really fear rejection. And what happens is we as guys, Sydney, and I'm sure you know this also, we feel like we're responsible for everything. I mean, we're the providers, we're the protectors, we're the heroes, we're the men in uniform, we're the police, the fire, and the FBI all rolled into one future husband, right? And so when there's a problem, we think like Vanilla Ice. Yo, I'll solve it, right? And, and meanwhile, a lot of times, hey, it's her, not you. And I think you just really hit the nail on the head there. So when there are women out there who really are just upset at men, and make no mistake, there are men out there who are upset with women. And I've seen women get all wadded up because a certain way a guy treated her or said something to her, and then all of a sudden her entire self-esteem is rocked because of what some knucklehead said. And meanwhile, guys, I think, are even more susceptible to that. And a lot of times, Sydney, I don't think women realize it, because women, unlike you, often misunderstand guys and think, well, we have no feelings. I mean, they'll watch the first 10 minutes of, say, Saving Private Ryan and roll their eyes and go, boys. You know what I mean? These guys are yakking. They're throwing up because they're about to die, and they really do have feelings. And it just seems like women feel like sometimes they can just say whatever they want to a guy because it'll just bounce off them anyway. And really, that's just a misunderstanding of the masculine feminine dance. Meanwhile, the women who are like you, more easygoing and actually like men, they have had more practice talking to guys exactly in the manner you're advocating. Guys bone up a little bit, if you'll pardon the sexual innuendo there, and talk to women more often. I mean, God forbid we talk to female human beings we're not attracted to simply because we like women in general and aren't always looking to quote unquote get laid. I mean, there's something there for both sides to reap benefits from.
Well, it's interesting you said that, Scott, because isn't in Saving Private Ryan, that opening scene, there's one soldier, like he's dying, he's laying on the beach, but he's calling for his mom? Like, is that not the same movie?
Yes, it is. And that happens in real life also.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about politics, but there was a very high profile, controversial murder by police where the guy they killed was calling for his mommy as he was dying.
Yeah. So just goes to show, like, I personally hate the men don't have feelings. I think that's fucking bullshit.
Of course it is.
You're just not encouraged to share. It doesn't mean you don't have them. And so years upon years of social conditioning of shoving that shit down, like, it's not true. It's not true.
Right. So you have men who think women don't like sex, and women who think men are only after sex, like sex robots. Meanwhile, guys are trying to get more sex, and they've somehow told themselves, well, even though women are out to get me, out to take all my personal wealth and probably trade me in on a better model once they find a richer, taller guy, I really still have to get my dick wet somehow. And meanwhile, you have women out there who are like, well, all these guys are jerks. They only want one thing, but can you find me a nice husband? We've laughed about that before, that whole dichotomy. So this is about people relating. And Sydney, what I've told these guys time and again is men and women aren't supposed to be adversaries. We're literally divinely designed to be in partnership. Okay? Of course. And so when we're talking about opening women up, I'm going to throw this on the table. You can disagree, and I bet you will. I bet you'll at least give some dimension to it because it's going to sound a little unidimensional.
Okay.
But I actually like to believe that if there's a problem in the bedroom or there's a problem in the attraction department, given the nature of how masculine and feminine dance together, often, I'm not going to say necessarily it's the guy's fault, because that's a little rough way to put it, but the guy is in a position to do something about it. That would be effective, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we start doing? This is a two-part question.
Okay.
And we're going to segue here, okay? We're going to go from the bar room to the bedroom.
Yeah.
What can we do? You've been waiting for this. What can we do as guys to help women feel more safe and comfortable with us? Not only when we meet them and start flirting with them and start seducing them, but also after the clothes come off and it's time to have sex. That alone sounds wonky and probably wrong-headed just the way I worded it, but you know what I'm getting at. So talk to me about this all-important dance that starts when you meet and culminates in just wild, riotous sex. Because guys already understand, if they're listeners to this show, that safety and security literally makes women feel horny when it's holistic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sure does.
Yeah, we'll see. You're yet another woman I've been brave enough to blurt that out at who has also agreed with it firsthand without ever even knowing. So talk about that. I want you to talk now. I want you to talk for a good long time on all that stuff. Give these guys everything you got.
Awesome. Well, I just want to ask the audience to literally ask yourself right now, gentlemen who are hearing this, like, when have you ever asked a woman directly, what makes you feel safe? What makes you feel more comfortable with me right now? It's literally that simple, and nobody does it because we don't think about it. We're just trained to, get them in, get it all off, get it in, get it out,
Well, like we have to trick them or fake it. Yeah.
Yeah. But in all honesty, like, these conversations, if you want to develop something real, in my opinion, you got to have these conversations actually outside the bedroom when your clothes are on.
Agreed.
It's not a great time to, like, when your clothes are off, you're maybe about to start doing it. And then you're like, oh, by the way, what would make you feel safe right now? It's not the best time, but at least you ask. But yeah,
that's a mood killer right there.
Yeah. And there are some women who will love you for it. They will literally want to open themselves up more because you cared enough to ask. And that's the other piece of it. Genuinely caring about the answer and like meeting those needs that she expresses to you rather than, oh, by the way, what makes you feel safe? Okay, great. Let's do this. Like, it's all about like the energy and intention behind it. And I know, Scott, you said you have a lot of really wonderful men in this community. They're not assholes. They do care. They want genuine connection. They want partnership.
Well, if we are assholes, it's for good reason and we care deep down anyway.
Yeah.
How's that for a clarification? All right.
But literally just asking a woman, hey, like, it feels really important to me that you feel good about this. So I'm just wondering, before, this progresses into something more sexual, what is it that you need from me to help you feel safe? That is going to be a game changer for you all. Trust me on that.
That's a hell of a takeaway right there.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of paused. So while you gather your thoughts some more, because you're not done yet, I want more out of this answer from you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing when a guy goes out on a date and the woman starts complaining about men. You guys are all like this. And my last boyfriend, oh, he was such a jerk, blah, blah, blah. I've always thought it was really powerful for a man to speak his truth, look her in the eye, draw a line in the sand and go, well, I'm not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you just added this wonderful layer on top of it. In fact, how can I make sure I'm not that guy? What did those guys mess up on where I could make you feel safer? Tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get chills and I'm not even a woman.
I got chills right now.
Yeah, I have that effect on chickies, don't I? Anyway, something that goes along with what you're saying, I think the next place to go from here, if you are looking for a little stepping stool to get there. A lot of guys don't understand what connection means anymore, but connection is like mental foreplay to women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? What does that even look like, Sydney?
Whew, that's a great question.
Shoe buddy. You got the shoe buddies, don't you?
I do, yeah.
As Ron White would say, shoo, buddy. Except he says that when he's drunk and hungover in the morning. We're nothing like that right now.
Well, yeah, from my perspective on that is really connection is just nurturing the relationship in ways that feel good, and not just physically, but gentlemen, if you really want to connect to a woman like deeply sexually, like you got to get that emotional piece in check. Like you both, and I don't want to say just women, like you both get to feel safe, like heart-centered, open. And that's something I wanted to add in, because not just women have had bad sexual experiences, but men have too. So that's a beautiful opportunity to ask the woman, but also like share from your perspective what makes you feel safe, what you're needing as well, because she is going to appreciate that vulnerability so much. You know, if she's, you know, a good heart-centered woman, like that's going to really deepen the connection. Sharing what's on your heart, being vulnerable, that helps like nurture that connection, that safety, that emotional piece. So you can both open up, feel comfortable, feel open, feel free to really start exploring pleasure together. Like what gets better than that?
Well, you just shot my blonde wig theory all full of holes like it's Swiss cheese. Now you're talking like a woman again. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let me speak womanese on behalf of these guys. Maybe with your help, you can help translate. After all, you're a native speaker. It's your native tongue.
Yeah.
You talk about nurturing the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be completely dead to rights honest with you. Guys are like, oh my God, nothing sounds more boring than whatever the heck it is she's talking about. You know, there's some guy out in West Texas. What in the shit you're talking about, girl? That's what he's saying right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability. Okay, good. We've talked about that on this show before. If guys are listeners of this show and they're not just, you know, stumbling upon this for the first time, then they already know that I, like Brené Brown, who famously talks about vulnerability, believe we need two words in the English language. One for the tortoise crossing the interstate, and the other one for feeling the risk and taking it anyway with courage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The latter is what you're talking about here. Okay. Latter, right? So what ends up happening is when guys are talking to a woman to draw out how she feels, to see what's going on in her head, to care, what you're doing is you're nurturing the relationship. Now, the step above that, you know, Ladder, right, would be to mix in some sensuality with it.
Oh, yeah.
When you start mixing in imagery or thoughts or ideas that build a little intimacy and make women start feeling pleasurably, it's a huge revelation for a lot of men to realize that boomerangs back to them as sexuality. All of a sudden, a woman goes, and I want you to comment on this. Oh my goodness, here's a guy who gets it. It seems like all women need is a guy who gets it when it comes to creating sexual attraction. And then if you are, as a man, indeed making her feel safe and comfortable, the clothes fall off. It's just not complicated. You know, I mean, notwithstanding religious reasons or someone being broken or very reticent or shy. I mean, I understand all that. But at the baseline level, once a woman feels safe and connected with, in the way you just described, very eloquently, I might add, she's ready to get naked. She's just as horny as we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Gentlemen, it's not about how you look. I mean, that helps, but
you can't be stinky and gross.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody on either side of the aisle wants that.
But yeah, like that emotional safety piece for her is what helps her feel aroused, literally.
You're saying like literally a lot, like a woman typically might, but every time you say it, it is literal. You're using literally completely in context. I'm going to add something here because I think this conversation needs a wrench thrown in it. Okay.
Okay.
You're saying 101 wonderful things. Okay. But there are also things I think a lot of times guys are reminding themselves they needed to hear again. You said that for women, it's not about looks as much. What would you say to this? I think a lot of times for men, it's not. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times guys have this mental image of their type, This is the kind of woman I want. And then a woman comes along who rocks that perception to the core. Mm-hmm. She looks nothing like what he expected. Now, she's probably not hideous or unattractive, but she's not what he saw coming. And it's because of who she is, how she acts, how she carries herself, the femininity, and how he looks upon her, interacts with her, and sees a lot of who he is in her. In other words, she's one of me. She's on my team. She matches up with me. She energizes me. She catalyzes my masculinity with that femininity of hers in a way that just really is above and beyond what I've seen lately. And then a lot of times, if you were to, very callously grade this female human being who he's now so turned on by from a scale of 1 to 10, as a lot of very shallow guys tend to do, she might be like a 6. Mm-hmm. But she's so damn sexy. And she's so damn interesting and cool that she just does it for him. And I think that's more of a reality for more men than perhaps we're even, conscious of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can agree. It kind of comes back to that energetic piece. Like, it does. Looks do matter. I'm not going to say they don't. But I think there's more to it. It's like how a woman holds herself, how she presents herself. Like, is she really bitchy and closed off, like I was talking about earlier? Or is she open and willing to smile and joke with you, even if she's not sexually interested in you? Like, that's fun. Like, I think that's attraction. Like, it's energy. Flirting is energy, and being playful and fun and curious. And yeah, it's so much more than looks. Like, I don't know, if you go to like Malibu,
I just love the way you say that. You let it fall out of your mouth, like with this Malibu, like those guys. Ugh.
Yeah, like you got the Botox and the fake boobs and the wigs and hair extensions, and I'm like, no, like, like I don't find those women attractive, and I'm not attracted to women, but I'm just like, it can be kind of just superficial, but you want to go for someone with some substance, some fire, like some genuine, just someone who's genuine.
Well, time's drawing short here.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to throw these guys one big old zinger before we close the show. What is the hottest thing you've ever seen in person or heard tell of that a guy did in the bedroom or said?
For me, just hot things men can do is just literally pay attention to the little things and voice your desires. Like, obviously, when you first meet someone, it's a little bit different. You don't want to be super forthcoming, like, hey, I want to ride you. That's all I'm thinking about right now. But just expressing like something from the heart. I think that's the most attractive thing a man can do, is express from his heart in a way that feels genuine and real and connecting, and conveys like an openness and a willingness to connect truly, not just physically. And then just voicing that desire, like telling a woman how much she's wanted. If you're in partnership, like reminding her like how much she means to you. To me, that's the hottest thing. And being playful, being fun, like flirty, like
even while having sex.
Oh yeah, make it fun. Just like take the pressure off, be willing to laugh, be willing to make weird noises. Like our bodies do some weird shit sometimes. But just having like a laugh about it, like that's going to help you have better sex. It's just not putting so much pressure on performing and having that gigantic orgasm and making her see stars. Like, just, it's the little things. Pay attention to the little things, and those will get you a lot farther.
I think that's fantastic advice. Love it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a wonderful way to slap a coat on this show. Love it. Think it's great. Her name is Sydney Richdale. She's from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And she's a sex and relationship coach. And when you go to mountaintopodcast.com/Richdale, RICHDALE, you're going to find her YouTube channel where she's building quite an audience because she does good work and gives good advice. Sydney, we hope you'll come back on. I mean, when we have personable female dating coaches, they tend to come back again and again because they tend to be very popular with these guys. So thank you for coming on, and I already want to invite you back.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I'd love to be back. Let's keep this conversation going.
Oh, yeah. I think we could do a whole show on that last question, which is, what are the hottest things that have ever happened in the bedroom? Anyway, thanks again for dropping by. Oh, yeah, we'll have to make it happen soon. Guys, if you haven't been to mountaintop.podcast.com, please visit our three main sponsors, Jocko Willink's company Origin in Maine, Hero Soap, and Keyport. Manly stuff proffered by all three. Use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 with any of our three sponsors to get an additional 10% off. And guys, also, listen, check it out. I talked to two more of you today on the phone. Both of them commented that, hey, you're not a fictional character behind the mic. You're exactly who I thought you'd be when I talked to you. And that's a great compliment to me because that's exactly how I want to come across. I want to be real and authentic with you guys. And when you take the time and the energy to get on my calendar to talk to me for 25 minutes for free, I respect that. I respect each and every one of you who do that. I respect what your thoughts are. I respect where you're coming from, and I especially respect where you want to go. So go ahead, get on my calendar. Let's talk. Let's make each other's acquaintance. And most of all, let's start getting you results. Sign up at the upper right-hand corner at mountaintoppodcast.com. It's a big red button. You just can't miss it. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scot McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.